Okay, here we are. This is the 20.1 intervention problem video. It's all about circles, and you've seen these types of area problems before. First off, since it is about area, let's make sure that we write the formula down first. So the area of a circle is always pi times the radius squared, which means we're going to need the radius of a circle to solve this. And we know that we're going to be using 3.14 for pi, and we know that we're going to be using a calculator when it comes time to actually solve things. We're going to use real-world tools here. So the first thing we need to look at is the important information. And here's the important information. The hiker is traveling at 3 miles per hour and left 3 hours ago. This 3 miles per hour is the radius of our circle. It tells us how far they can travel, or excuse me, it's part of the radius of our circle. So when we put these two together, when we put the 3 miles per hour times the 3 hours ago, so we have 3 miles per hour times 3 hours, we know that our hiker has traveled, or can have traveled, 9 miles. If a hiker went in a straight line, they'd have traveled 9 miles. That 9 miles becomes the radius of the circle. Let me move the calculator out of the way for just a minute and demonstrate why that's the radius of the circle. So here is a circle. And this circle is going to represent the potential search area. Here is where we know the hiker began. The hiker could have traveled 9 miles in this direction, or the hiker could have traveled 9 miles in this direction, or the hiker could have traveled 9 miles in this direction. Now, it's possible the hiker has traveled 9 miles and it looks something like that. But that'll put us inside this area. We don't know what that looks like. What we do know is if the hiker went in a straight line for the 3 hours at 3 miles per hour, the furthest the hiker could get is 9 miles. So that's the radius of our circle. So to find the area that could be covered, we're going to take, and remember again, we're finding area, we're going to take 3.14 times the radius squared, which is 3.14 times 81. You shouldn't need the calculator to square that, but we'll use the calculator to do this. 3.14 times the 81 tells us that we need to cover an area of 254.34 square miles. That's the amount of distance that the hiker could have traveled since we don't know what direction. So now we have the area. We have 254.34 square miles. That is our answer to this first part, 254.34 square miles. Okay, now that brings us to question number 2, or part B. How much additional area, there's the key word right there, additional area, would the searchers have to cover if the hiker was last seen 5 hours ago? So once again, we need to figure out how far could the hiker have traveled. So now we have 3 miles per hour times 5 hours. The hiker could have traveled 15 miles, and that becomes the new radius. So now we're looking at a circle with a radius of 15. So we're going to go through the same process again. We're going to find the area of that. So it's 3.14 times 15 squared, which is 3.14 times 225. That's the 15 squared. 3.14 times 225, I may have said 55, it's 25, gives us 706.5 square miles. That's the new area. Let me get the calculator out of the way here. That is the new area. The question says, what's the additional area? So this is not our answer. We're going to use it to get our answer. We're going to bring it up right over here, 706.5. I'm going to add a 0 to it since this had 2 places after the decimal, minus 254.34. We're going to subtract. Additional area tells us that we need to find the difference. That's what that additional area is saying. Find the difference. So let's find the difference. Bust out the calculator. Still has the 706.5. Let's take away the 254.34. And we end up with 452.16 square miles additional area. And that becomes the answer to the second part, to part B. This is the part B answer. This was the part A answer. So take a look at that. We're going to move on to the second question here in just a minute. Be sure now, if you were a bit stuck, you weren't really sure how to do that problem, now you've got all the setup to do the second problem because the format is identical. It's just the numbers that are changing. You have the same idea happening. All right, let's go down and get the second problem. So here comes the second problem. It's the same idea. In the first part, hikers are sent out, searchers are sent out. The hiker had traveled 4 miles per hour, left 2 hours ago. So 4 miles per hour times 2 hours gives us 8 miles. And that 8 miles becomes the radius of our circle. So we have our area formula again, 3.14 times 8 squared, which is 3.14 times 64, and that is 3.14 times 64, 200.96. So the answer to part A is 200.96 square miles. Part B, once again, asks us to find the additional area. How much more? Think of that. When you see additional, think how much more, which should make you think difference. So we have one new fact. The one new fact is now it's 4 hours ago. So we have 4 miles per hour times 4 hours equals 16 miles. If you traveled in a straight line, 16. Now, let's do a quick, here's how to avoid a common error. Some students would look at that 16 and say, oh, that's just twice the 8, so it'll be another 200.96. We're going to see that actually because we square things, it becomes a lot more than the 200.96 extra. So here's our work. We have 3.14 times 16 squared, because this 16 again is the radius. So that means we have 3.14 times, let's square 16, 16 squared, 256. All right, let's calculate it out. We still have the 256 on our calculator. So we have 3.14 times 256. So 256 times 3.14 is 803.84 square miles. Notice that's a lot more than 200.96. In fact, just a little check, 803 divided by 200.96, it's 4 times as much, because this 256 is 4 times as much as the 64. So it's what happens after you square it that counts. Let's go ahead then and finish out the problem, because we know this isn't the answer. This is the new area, 803.84, minus the original area, 200.96. 803.84 minus 200.96 equals 602.88 square miles additional area. And that is the answer to part B. Okay, so you're going to make sure you understand how to do this. You can come and ask me some questions if there's still parts of it you're not sure about. And then once you feel confident and you have this paper done and corrected, come and see me and you can take the Concept 20.1 intervention test.